Kids have an amazing way of entertaining and engaging their imagination. Unfortunately, many of us leave our imagination behind. I'm not sure you're aware of it, but by the age of 4, the imagination of children has continued to grow until they reach the age of 6. Then it starts to decline. Why do you think that is?
They go to school.
Very good. They go to school. They go to school, and in effect, their imagination is educated out. They begin to trust in their intellect more than their imagination. But what I'd like to do is to talk to you tonight about helping you to grow in your faith. This may surprise you, but faith comes not so much from your intellect, it comes from imagination. It's how you imagine God to be, and how you imagine yourself to be. In that wonderful dynamic, this is why St. Catherine of Siena, Doctor of the Church, said it this way, that knowledge of self and knowledge of God are intimately connected. Think of it as like two sides of the same coin. So the more that you can develop your imagination, the more you can engage it, celebrate it, live in it, the more a man or woman of faith you will become. It's dynamic. In fact, this is why mystics have a completely different language than most of us. Because their imagination is so broad, their sense of the divine, their sense of their own self as human beings is beyond, we would say, the ordinary. Sometimes the way that we imagine the past traps us in such a way that we can't, shall we say, trust the future. The word that we use in Christian circles is believe. Hopefully you're beginning to sense that to grow in faith means to grow in one's humanity, in relationship to the unknown. What faith does, healthy faith does for human beings, is it liberates us into the fullness of our humanity. God believes in you, perhaps even more than you believe in yourself. And this is why the journey of faith is a journey with God. Not for God, but with God. Because God is a with God. So we say God is with us, God is for us, God is within us, leading us on eternal life. Again, we quote St. Catherine of Siena, how you live now is how you will eternally. Or she says it more poetically, we live in heaven even now. We live in heaven even now, or we live in hell even now. So are you tied up, or are you free? When we look at the scriptures, we see that there are different truths of biblical scripture. The first is surrender to God. Surrender to God. To come to some point in your life, our life, to readily see, to admit, and to receive the truth that you are not God, nor are you a machine, nor are you in any way a spirit or an animal. You are a human being. And so we are to spend the rest of our life unpacking that mystery. Or, as a couple of the saints have pointed out, to grow in the freedom of being a beloved son or daughter of God. So, but you don't just do that once. We do this surrendering to God over and over and over again. For us as Catholic Christians, this is why we celebrate the sacrament of penance. Is that time and time again we celebrate the sacrament to remind us that we need to let go. We need to surrender. We need to turn over to God our lives. Or here's another way of saying it. In Catholic theology, we say it this way. That which is truly sacrificed to God, that means offered up or turned over to God, becomes glorified. So this is why perhaps when you were little boys and girls, you were told by your religious education teacher, when we celebrate the Eucharist, and you notice the priest taking the gifts, blessing them, offering them up, that whole symbolic gesture in prayer is meant to be the way we live our lives as Catholics. Is that every day, in every way, with every aspect of our life, we are to make it a point of offering our lives to God, that they might be transformed, they might become glorified, renewed, and refreshed. The second truth of biblical spirituality is that not only are we to surrender our life to God, to turn it over, to offer it up, the second way is that we have to take responsibility for our life. Nobody can live your life but you. Not even God can live your life. And so to take responsibility for your life means that you let go of blaming others, including your parents, yes, including your wife, and your kids, and everybody else. Take responsibility for all that you are, all that's happened to you, and recognize this is the life that's been given to you. What are you going to do with it? So think of it as a back and forth motion, almost like a two-step, that we regularly are to live our lives surrendering, letting go, not holding on to anything previous, so that what? We can take responsibility for growing in our life, back and forth. All you're asked to do as a human being is to live in this moment. And when you live in this moment, you discover you have whatever you need in this moment. Okay? This is the lesson that God teaches us, that to be a man of faith, to be a woman of faith, is to trust that you have what you need for this moment. Think of the scripture where Jesus talked over and over again about trusting. Trusting the unknown, trusting like the birds of the air, that what is needed will be provided. All of this, of course, demands that we surrender over and over again our insecurities, our fear. What if, last time I tried this happened. Yes, that may be true, but can you trust this moment? When we look at the 7 sacraments, this is the way we live out our faith. We're saying, in effect, that God is not only above and beyond us, the theological word is transcendent beyond us. God is also immanent, meaning within us. God is also transparent through creation. Okay? Through creation. So we read God, we see God, we experience God through creation. Why is this important? Because each sacrament says something different about God. So let me say it in a poetic way. We say that God is love, God is forgiving, God is nourishing, God is blessing, God is serving, God is unifying. Sound familiar? 7 sacraments. Whatever you say about one, you say about the other. This is how we're to live our lives as a sacrament people. This is how we're to grow as a people of faith. That in all our dealings with people, we are to be loving. We are to bless others, not in a liturgical way, but we are to affirm them, to encourage them, to see their goodness, to mirror it for them, and to call that out of them. We are to be grateful. We are to forgive and to be reconciled. We are to heal. We are to serve, and we are to unite. Here's the 7 sacraments. That every time you do that, you are a sacrament person. That in the end you discover what Jesus proclaimed is that the last word. It's not about death, not about suffering. That's always going to be there. It's about the consolation and awareness that life is good. We are loved. You are blessed. You are nourished. You are forgiven. You are being served by God. You're not alone in all the many, many things that Jesus said in the Gospels that we proclaim in the sacraments. Does that make sense? I hope I didn't overwhelm you tonight. Did it speak to your experience? Good.